أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن أعداءهم أجمعين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى أهل بيتك وأصحابك ولعن الله قاتليك. There is a misconception going around about the Shia, especially, that every year we see the Shia, they are sometimes going to an extreme way of mourning Imam Al-Husayn salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. And these misconceptions, they're either based off of ignorance and someone not studying in the topic, or just hearing the people that sit upon the pulpits or anywhere, either on social media, at gatherings. They sit down and they say, look at these Shia and look at how they mourn Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam. Why are they lifting their voices while crying like a child? That's what I saw someone say. Now, the Shia, what do they have to back up these things? Of course, this, as you can see that the room is titled, it is a Sunnah Nabawiyya. It is the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. But of course, I cannot claim that anything is the Sunnah of a Prophet alayhi afdal salatu wa tamu salamu ala alih, except that I bring proof. So we'll start with the proof, going along with the misconceptions. So the first one that I see is, was Rasulullah seen, mathalan, because we claim it's a Sunnah, was Rasulullah seen with sand on his head, as some of the Shia do today? I'll go ahead and start with the first source, and I will bring it from, as we like to say, Ummahat al-Kutub, the most authentic of sources, or one of the most authentic sources, and this is the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani. And I'll post it inside the khutbah for anyone who wants to view it. So this is Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, authenticated by Shu'aib al-Arnaout, printed by Muassasat al-Risalat al-Alamiyya, volume 4, page 336 to 337. And the hadith number is 2553, according to this print of the book, which is Muassasat al-Risalah. And he narrates with this chain, which is حدثنا عفان حدثنا حماد وهو ابن سلمة أخبرنا عمار عن ابن عباس قال. So the famous Sahabi Ibn Abbas رضوان عليه, he is narrating this story to us. قال رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فيما يرى النائم بنصف النهار وهو قائم أشعث أغبر بيده قارورة فيها دم، فقلت بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله، ما هذا؟ قال هذا دم الحسين عليه السلام وأصحابه، لم أزل ألتقطه منذ اليوم، فأحصينا ذلك اليوم فوجدوه قتل في ذلك اليوم. And if we want to see inside the حاشية, it is إسناده قوي على شرط Muslim. So this hadith, the chain is very strong on the conditions of Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj al-Naysaburi. And Ibn Abbas radwanullahi alayhi, he said that I saw the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam in a dream, basically. And he saw Rasulullah alayhi afdal salatu wa tamu salam standing up. And his hair was not in the way that you would see someone who like he's formal. We know that Rasulullah was a formal person. He was very clean. They would see him looking very good, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. But this time when Ibn Abbas, who knows what Rasulullah looks like, when he saw him in the dream, he saw that Rasulullah's hair was not very organized. And on it was ghubar, as the hadith says. Ash'athun aghbar. Ghubar is dust, is sand. And he is holding a container, a little container. It could be made of glass or nowadays plastic. And in it is blood. And so I told him, may my mother and father be a ransom to you, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. What is this? He says, this is the blood of Al-Husayn alayhi salam and his companions. And I have been all day picking it up and gathering it in this container. And so when Ibn Abbas, he woke up after this, says, فَأَحْصَيْنَا ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ. So I heard about the news that day, and at that same time that I saw Rasulullah in that dream was the same time that Al-Husayn alayhi afdal salati wa atammu salam was killed. So we see that this hadith, it is of course sahih under the conditions of Muslim. And we can see that having dust on your head out of sadness for Imam Al-Husayn salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, which I prove it is out of sadness, and other ahadiths as well, is a sunnah, a tradition of our holy prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him and his family. Now, the one that most Shia do, if not all, is crying and lifting your voices, as we say, nahib, crying and lifting your voices over Al-Husayn alayhi afdal salati wa atammu salam. Did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam ever keep sand or kiss the sand of Karbala as the Shia do today? Did he cry over Al-Husayn as the Shia do today? We will open up the ahadith and we will find that the answer is yes, 100%. And I will go ahead and give this hadith, inshallah, starting with the ahadith that I could find from Ahmad ibn Hanbal. This is in Fadail al-Sahaba, the virtues of the companions of Rasulullah, by Ahmad ibn Hanbal, printed by Dar ibn al-Jawzi, authenticated by Wasiullah ibn Muhammad Abbas, volume 2, page 965. So it says, حدثنا Abdullah, meaning Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the son of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, says, I narrated from my father, from Waki', from Abdullah ibn Sa'id, from his father, from either Aisha or al-Mu'mineen, Salama, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim. Waki' says it was one of them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said to one of them, either Aisha or Salama, لقد دخل علي البيت ملك لم يدخل علي قبلها فقال لي إن ابنك هذا حسين مقتول فإن شئت آتيك من تربة الأرض التي يقتل بها قال فأخرج إلي تربة حمراء. We see that the hadith, it says with a sahih chain, of course, if you look in the footnote, if we look there, 1357. It says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam either said to Aisha or Salama salamullahi alayha, an angel that has never come in on me. It has never come into this house before, it has come in now. And it told me, obviously the angels are sent as wahi. What did order of Allah? So what did this angel tell Rasulullah? He says, your son Hussein alayhi salam will be killed. And if you want, I will bring you the sand of the earth that he will be killed on. So Rasulullah, what's his response? He wants to see this sand that he will be killed on. And so he says, قَالَ فَأَخْرَجَ إِلَيَّ تُرْبَةٌ حَمْرَاء. So Rasulullah was given by the angel a red turba. Now, what is the secret behind this turba? Why is Rasulullah asking for turab, asking for sand on the earth that his grandson will be killed in? I want to go ahead, and this is a hadith that both combines that Rasulullah cried and he was asking for the turab of Karbala, the sand of Karbala. Rasulullah was asking for it, and he had it in his hands while he was crying. And so this is from the same book, Fadail al-Sahaba by Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the same volume, the same exact print, same book, page 982, hadith number 1391. And as you can see, the isnad is Hasan. The chain is Hasan, it is sound. The chain is Ibrahim ibn Abdullah, from Hajjaj, from Hamad, from Aban, from Shahr ibn Hawshab, from Salama, al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayha, قالت كان جبريل عليه السلام عند النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم والحسين معي فبكى فتركته فدنا من النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فقال جبرائيل عليه السلام أتحبه يا محمد؟ قال نعم. فقال إن أمتك ستقتله وإن شئت أريتك من تربة الأرض التي يقتل بها فأراه إياه فإذا الأرض يقال لها كربلاء. So it says, Salama alayhi salam, she narrates that Jibra'il alayhi salam was with her and the Prophet, and Al-Husayn was with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And so the Prophet, he started crying. And so Salama was holding the Al-Husayn alayhi salam, as in the hadith. And so she left Al-Husayn to go to the Prophet. And so Jibreel alayhi salam, when he saw this, he said, "Do you love him, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi?" He said, "Yes, I love him." He said, "Your own nation will kill him. And if you want, I will show you the sand of the earth that he was killed on." And so he showed him that sand, and the earth was called Karbala. Now, there are ahadith outside of Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal that do sort of narrate something very, very similar, or Fada'il al-Sahaba by Ahmad ibn Hanbal, afwan. If we go to his Musnad, we'll see what was the state of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam when he heard about the news of Al-Husayn alayhi salam. This is in his Musnad, the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, authenticated by Ahmad Muhammad Shakir and printed by Dar al-Hadith in Al-Qahira, volume 1, page 446, hadith number 648. And it says, from Abdullah ibn Nujay, from his father, عن عبد الله بن نجي عن أبيه أنه سار مع علي عليه السلام وكان صاحب مطهرته، فلما حاذى نينوى وهو منطلق إلى صفين فنادى علي عليه السلام: اصبر أبا عبد الله، اصبر أبا عبد الله بشط الفرات. قلت: وماذا؟ قال: دخلت على النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ذات يوم وعيناه تفيضان، فقلت: يا نبي الله، أغضبك أحد؟ ما شأن عيناك تفيضان؟ فقال: بل قام من عندي جبريل قد فحدثني أن الحسين عليه السلام يقتل بشط الفرات. قال: فقال: هل لك أن أشمك من تربته؟ قال: قلت: نعم. فمد يده فقبض قبضة من تراب فأعطانيها فلم أملك عيني أن فاضتاه. So Abdullah ibn Nujay, he was with Ali he narrates from his father that his father, he was with Ali alayhi salam on his way to Siffin. And so when they passed by Nainawa is another name for the land of Karbala, the land that Al-Husayn alayhi afdal salatu wasalam was killed on. So when he passed by Nainawa, i.e. Karbala, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he cried out, patience Aba Abdullah, patience Aba Abdullah, near the river of the Euphrates. So I said, what do you mean? So he said, I walked in on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam on a day, and his eyes were pouring. His eyes were flooding with tears. The blessed eyes of Rasulullah, they were flooding with tears. Why is this? Imam Ali, he explains. So he said, I said, Ya Nabi Allah, O Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has anyone made you angry? Why are your eyes pouring? So he says, so he sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam says, Jibreel alayhi salam came to me a bit before, and he told me that Al-Husayn alayhi salam will be killed by the river Euphrates. And so Jibreel alayhi salam, he told me, do you want to smell his turba? So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, he replies, yes. And so he stretched out his hand, Jibreel alayhi salam, and he gave him a fistful of sand. And so he gave it to Rasulullah. Rasulullah could not stop his eyes from pouring. Those are the ahadith in Musnad al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Now, and Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam, of course, he was killed by the river Euphrates, as we know, on the day of Karbala. And so there is a significance, of course, to the land of Karbala, as we saw in the ahadith, and its turba, and its sand. How Rasulullah was dealing with it. He was smelling it. He had it in his hands while he was crying. There's a secret behind this turba. And the same hadith is found in Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah. A little bit cut down, but it is by far the same hadith. So this is Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah. You see, it is authenticated by Muhammad Awama, volume 21, page 146. Printed by Dar al-Siyar, by the way. Hadith number 38,522. And as you can see in the footnote, he says, "Wal hadithu thabit." This hadith is authenticated. And it's the same thing. So when he passed by Nainawa while he was going to Safin, he cried out, Sabran Abu Abdullah, which means patience, Abu Abdullah, near the river Euphrates. Just to show you that the reason I'm quoting the same hadith but from a different book is to show you that the earliest of scholars, the pre-Bukhari sources, like Al-Musannaf by Ibn Abi Shaybah and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the teachers of Bukhari, they were the ones who narrated these ahadith. Now, I want to go ahead and I want to do ikhtisar. I want to shorten down the ahadith a little bit because these ahadith, there are so many of them. If for anyone who wants them, I have 19 scans of just ahadith from several scholars of the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is crying over Al-Husayn alayhi salam. Now, I want to show you something real quick. This is one of the earliest sources, and it is Mashikhat ibn Tahman. Ibn Tahman, Ibrahim bin Tahman, died 163 years after the Hijrah. So this book is earlier than Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Ibn Abi Shaybah. So I want to go ahead and post this inside khutbah as well. هذا مشيخة ibn Tahman. And he says, from Abbad ibn Ishaq, from Hashim ibn Hashim, from Abdullah ibn Wahab, from Salama, Salamullahi alayha, that she said, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam entered my house. And so he told me, no one will come in on us. So I heard a voice, meaning like probably outside of the house. And so she went to go see what it is. Inside the house, afwan. There was a voice inside the house, and she wanted to see what it was. As Rasulullah, okay? And with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa, according to the hadith, was Al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhim as-salam. And Rasulullah, وَإِذَا هُوَ حَزِينٌ. And Rasulullah, he's very sad. And he says, أَوْ قَالَتْ يَبْكِي. Or she said, i.e. Salama alayhi salam, he is crying. So, I told Rasulullah, why are you crying, O Rasulullah? Sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So he says, Jibreel alayhi salam told me that he will be killed by my own nation after me. So he says, and so I told him, and who will kill him? Who will kill Al-Husayn alayhi salam? And so he grabbed as the hadith says, madara. Madara is like a stone. It can either have engravings in it, ila akhirih. And so it says, قال أهل هذه المدرة تقتله. So see, the people of this sand, i.e. the sand of Karbala, they will kill him. They will kill Al-Husayn alayhi salam. If you look inside the footnote, the حاشية يقول قلت إسناده حسن رجاله ثقات وهاشم بن هاشم هو ابن عتبة الزهري المدني وهو ثقة من رجال الكتب الستة إلى آخر الحديث. So hadith is authentic about Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam and the khabar of Jibreel salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi coming to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam and telling him that Al-Husayn will be killed. And of course, this is in one of the earliest sources, and that is Mashikhat ibn Tahman, who died 163 years after the Hijrah. Now, you'll see that the Shia Muslims today, they'll kiss the turba of Karbala, and they'll pray on it. Because the ahamiyya of turbat Karbala, it obviously held something in the blessed heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And so, to find out what place it held, we'll go to Mustadrak al-Hakim, printed by Dar al-Kitub al-Ilmiya, and of course the sources are in Khutbah, volume 4, page 440. And as you can see, it was authenticated under the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim, and Al-Dhahabi agrees with Al-Hakim on this grading. The hadith says, أخبرتني أم سلمة رضي الله عنها أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله اضطجع ذات يوم أو ذات ليلة للنوم فاستيقظ وهو حائر ثم اضطجع فرقد ثم استيقظ وهو حائر دون ما رأيت به المرة الأولى ثم اضطجع فاستيقظ وفي يده تربة حمراء يقبلها فقلت ما هذه التربة يا رسول الله وفي يده تربة حمراء يقبلها. فقلت ما هذه التربة يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله؟ فقال أخبرني جبرائيل عليه الصلاة والسلام أن هذا أي الحسين يقتل بأرض العراق. فقلت لجبريل أرني تربة الأرض التي يقتل بها، فهذه تربتها. So it says that Salama alayhi salam was with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and he had a nightmare, so he woke up. And then he fell back asleep, and he had a nightmare again, and he woke up, and then he fell back asleep. And then he had a nightmare for the third time, and that third time he saw that in his hand was a rock, I should say, or a bit of sand, and he was kissing it. So I told him, Ya Rasulullah, what is this turba? What is this sand? So he said, Jibreel alayhi salam told me that he, Al-Husayn alayhi salam, will be killed in the land of Iraq. And so I told Jibreel alayhi salam to show me the sand that he will be killed on. And this is its sand. And then it also says, we also have other hadith, afwan, that show the akhasiyya of Turbat Karbala, but there are a lot. And Al-Albani, he shows them clearly in his Silsilat Hadith Sahiha, and I'll give the source for anyone who wants it. Now, I want to go to this hadith here, because I mentioned how the Shia, they lifted their voices while crying over Al-Husayn alayhi salam. And this is إتحاف الخيرة المهرة بزواد المسانيد العشرة by Al-Busayri. The first hadith in that scan, which is, by the way, this is volume 9, or volume 7, afwan, page 238 to 239. And it is the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu, when he talks about the dream of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and when he saw the container in his hand that had blood in it. Now, and he says, Rawahu Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba wa Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba, he narrated it. So did Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And then he says, Bisanadin Sahih, with an authentic chain. Under that, Ahmad ibn Mani' he added to the hadith, as we see in the Matalib al-Aliyah by Ibn Hajar, that Salama alayhi salam said, I heard the jinn wailing over Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam. And then this is the hadith that I want to focus on right here. Salama alayhi salam narrates, I was with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was sleeping in my house. And so Al-Husayn alayhi salam came. And so I sat at the door and I grabbed Al-Husayn, afraid that he would wake up Rasulullah. And so I grabbed onto something, and so Al-Husayn, he got out of my hold, and he went in and he sat on the stomach of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So after this, what does Salama alayhi salam say? He says, فَسَمِعْتُ نَحِيبَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ. I heard the wailing and the screaming and the weeping of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So I came in and I said, Ya Rasulullah, what did you find out about Al-Husayn? So Rasulullah, he says, Jibreel alayhi salam came to me while he was sitting on my stomach, and he told me, do you love him? I said, yes. He said, your own nation will kill him. Do you want me to show you the sand of the earth that he will be killed on? So I said, yes. So he hid with his wing and pulled out the sand. And so she said, and in his hand was a red turba, a red sand. And she says, Layta shi'ri man yaqtuluka ba'di. And Rasulullah, she says about Rasulullah, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Layta shi'ri man yaqtuluka ba'di. So I wish I could find out who would kill you after me. We see that Al-Busayri, who's Ahmad ibn Abi Bakr ibn Ismail al-Busayri, he says, Rawahu Abd ibn Humayd bi sanadin sahih. So Abd ibn Humayd narrated it with a sahih chain. Now, what about the other people besides Rasulullah? What did they do with the sand of the grave of, or not the grave, the land of Karbala, the place that Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed in? What did Salama salawatullahi alayha do with it? Because we hear a lot about it. It says from Anas ibn Malik that he said, Malikul Qatar, a new angel. How many angels? These are now 3 angels that have walked in on Rasulullah and multiple Sahabis. Now we have Anas ibn Malik. that narrates this. استأذن ملك القطر ربه أن يزور النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فأذن له وكان في يوم أم سلمة فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يا أم سلمة احفظي علينا الباب لا يدخل علينا أحد فبينما هي على الباب إذ جاء الحسين علي ابن علي عليه السلام فاقتحم ففتح الباب فدخل فجعل النبي يلزمه ويقبله فقال الملك أتحبه؟ قال نعم. قال إن أمتك ستقتله وإن شئت أريتك المكان الذي تقتله فيه فقال نعم. قال فقبض قبضة من المكان الذي قتل فيه فجاء بسهلة أو تراب أحمر فأخذته أم سلمة عليه السلام فجعلته في ثوبها. قال ثابت فكان نقول أنها كربلاء. So Anas ibn Malik narrates that Malak al-Qatar asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do ziyarah of the Prophet, to visit the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So Allah gave him permission. And it was on the day of Salama. He was in Salama's house. And so the Prophet said to Salama salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha, close the door, make sure that no one comes in on us. And so while she was doing that, Al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam came in and he opened the door and he entered. And so the Prophet, he grabbed him and he started kissing him. And so the angel told him, do you love him? He said, yes. He said, your ummah will kill him. Your own nation will kill him. And I can show you the place that your ummah will kill him on. And so Rasulullah said, yes. And so he grabbed the sand and he showed him. Now Salama says, Anas says about Salama, فأخذته فجعلته في ثوبها. She took it and she kept it inside of her thobe. قال ثابت فكان نقول أنها كربلاء. And we used to say that this is the land of Karbala. Now we'll see, the hadith says, ورواه أبو يعلى وابن حبان في صحيحه. So Abu Ya'la narrated it and Ibn Hibban narrated it in his Sahih. And if we go to the footnote number 12, he says, قال الهيثمي في المجمع رواه أحمد وأبو يعلى والبزار والطبراني بأسانيد وفيه عمارة بن زادان وثقة جماعة وفيه ضعف وبقية رجال أبي يعلى رجال الصحيح. So this hadith, it has one person that's basically Hassan. He has a bit of weakness in him, but overall he's thiqah. And the rest of the people in the chain are the Rijal of Bukhari. Now, some of the people, they'll say, okay, we'll understand now. But we'll see the Shi'is, they'll say, oh, the sky, it rained blood on the day that Al-Husayn was killed. Or after Al-Husayn was killed, the sky, it started raining blood. Or it started raining sand, red sand. Or the things that are abnormal, they happened. And the people, they saw them after Al-Husayn was killed. What were they? They'll either ask, what were they? Or what are they talking about? Or is this authentic? Now, this was brought up to one of the quote-unquote scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and that is الدكتور الشيخ الباحث المتخصص في الديانة والمذاهب, the professional, the doctor. He has PhD in everything. He's an expert in fiqh, hadith, ilm al-rijal. Please, I want amazing claps for Uthman al-Khamis. What does he say? Uthman al-Khamis, maybe he's coming out with some truth today. Maybe he won't lie like he usually does. It says, وَأَمَّا مَا رُوِيَ. So it says, this is his book, حُقْبَةٌ مِنَ التَّارِيخ, page 199. He says, وَأَمَّا مَا رُوِيَ مِنْ أَنَّ السَّمَاء صارت تمطر دما وأن الجدار كان يكون عليها دم أو ما يرفع حجرا إلا وجد تحته دما أو ما يذبحون جزورا إلا صار كله دم فهذه كلها من أكاذيب وترهات ليس لها سند صحيح إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وآله أو أحد ممن عاصر الحادثة ولا حتى ضعيف إنما هي أكاذيب تذكر لإثارة العواطف أو روايات بأسانيد منقطعة ممن لم يدرك الحادثة. So basically he's saying, oh, what about these narrations that the sky was raining and that the people, they would not lift a stone unless under it was blood? This is all a lie. and like jokes that the people they throw around, and it does not have a single sahih chain to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or anyone who was during the time of the death of Al-Husayn alayhi salam. And so no sahih, not even da'if, not a chance. It is all mawdu', akadhib, lies, fabrications. And these fabrications are mentioned so they can make it dramatic and stuff like that. Or there are narrations that with cut chains, disconnected chains from the people that were not during the death of Al-Husayn alayhi salam. We're about to see, is this true? Allah ala diktur, Allah ala diktur. Let's go back to the sources. Is this true? Did the sky rain blood? Or did they see blood on the walls during the day of the death of Imam Al-Husayn salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, or after Al-Husayn died? This is in Kitab Al-Ansab Al-Ashraf by Ahmed ibn Yahya Al-Baladri. He died 279 years after the Hijrah, printed by Dar al-Fikr, volume 3, page 413. He narrates from Abi Husayn. By the way, this is mutawatir. These are many chains, and I'm just going to mention to you the narrations because I'll bring you people that saying that they are sahih. But I'm doing ikhtisar here. So from Abi Husayn that he said, when Al-Husayn alayhi salam died, it was for 2 or 3 years, or 3 not years, 2 or 3 months straight, and we see that the walls were covered in blood. Every single time we woke up for the morning prayers, for the dawn prayers, Salatul Fajr. From Salim al-Qas that he said, the days that Al-Husayn were killed in, blood was raining. From Muhammad ibn Sirin that he said, it is as if we saw a red fire in the sky. We have never seen this red fire in the sky until the day that Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed. From Abi Qubayl that he said that the sky became dark on the day of the death of Al-Husayn until they even saw the stars. What about this right here? We want to go ahead, and these are a few similar hadiths, but we will go to Awthaq al-Kutub. And this is, of course, Majma' al-Zawad wa Manba' al-Fawad by Al-Haythami, volume 9, printed by Dar al-Fikr. So this is on page 315 of the 9th volume to 316. So from Az-Zuhri that he said, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, la'natullahi alayhim, said to me, can you tell me a sign of any of the signs that Al-Husayn alayhi salam, you know that it was the day that Al-Husayn alayhi salam died? So Az-Zuhri, he says, in Jerusalem, Bayt al-Maqdis, in Jerusalem, there was not a stone lifted unless under it was blood. So Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, la'natullahi alayhima, says, I agree with you on this narration. Al-Haythami says, Rawahu Tabarani wa rijaluhu thuqat. So Tabarani narrated it, and the people in the chain are thuqat, trustworthy. From Az-Zuhri that he said, there was not a stone lifted in Ash-Sham, in the Levant, unless under it was blood, the day that Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed. Says Rawah Tabarani wa rijaluhu rijalu sahih. So Tabarani narrated it, and the people of the chain are the rijal of Bukhari. From Hakim that she said, the day Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed, I was a servant. And a few days later, we saw the sky as if it was a blood clot. And so Tabarani narrated it, and the rijal of the chain to Hakim are the rijal of Bukhari. From Abi Qubayl that he said, when Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed, there was a solar eclipse. And the solar eclipse, it made the sky so dark that we saw the stars in the middle of the day until we thought it was it. Meaning that they thought it was Yawm al-Qiyamah. They thought it was the day of judgment. It says, At-Tabarani narrated it, and the chain is Hasan. There are even more narrations. And of course, I will try to do ikhtisar because at this point, we already know that Uthman al-Khamis has lied, or he is either ignorant, he's a jahil, because he has lied to all these people saying, كلهم منقطع, and it's all lies and it's fabricated. طيب? Let's go ahead. In Tarikh Madinat Dimashq alone, it's mutawatir. So let's go ahead and open up Tarikh Madinat Dimashq by Ibn Asakir, printed by Dar al-Fikr, volume 14, page 226 to 228. I will do iqtisar. And I will only mention the narrator I will not mention the full chains because, as you know, there are a lot of narrations, and at this point, it's already mutawatir. It's sahih. We know this. And of course, the chains of Ibn Asakir are very long. So it says, from Khalaf ibn Khalifa, from his father, that he said, when Al-Husayn alayhi salam died, the sky started becoming black and we saw the stars in the middle of the day. And then it even says, and it started raining and started falling from the sky red sand. Just as the Shia say on the Manabir, right? Are these Shia lies? Are these fabricated? Are these akadib, as Uthman al-Khamis says? الدكتور Uthman al-Khamis, الباحث المتخصص في المذاهب. From Ali ibn Musahhir, from his grandmother, that she said, during the days of the death of Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam, I was a slave girl, a young slave girl, and the sky looked like a dark blood clot. And so the same thing under it, the same exact hadith under it, also from Ali ibn Musahhir, but from a little bit of a different chain. From Khallat Sahib al-Samim, from his mother, that she said, it was in my time that Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed. And the sky and the sun would come out as if it was glowing red. It says the exact wording, but تطلع محمرة. And the reflection of the sunlight off of the walls looked like red as well. It was as if it was red. Day and night. And then she also said, and they would not lift a stone unless under it was blood. After these next couple hadiths, inshallah, we'll wrap up. From Ali ibn Mudrik, from his grandfather Al-Aswad ibn Qais, that he said, the skies and its cloud became red on the days of the death of Imam Al-Husayn, and after it for 6 months. And the clouds of the sky looked like it was blood. From Isa ibn al-Harith al-Kindi, that when Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed, we stayed for 7 days, 7 days straight. Listen to this. So at first there was a solar eclipse, the sky got dark. When the sun would come out, the light that it would reflect was red. What about this one? Listen to this. So you can see that the musibah of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam had an effect on the samawat and the aradeen. It's from Isa ibn al-Harith al-Kindi, that he said, for 7 days straight after Al-Husayn alayhi salatu wassalam was killed, every single time we would pray Salatul Asr, the afternoon prayers, we would look at the sunlight on our walls, and it was as if it was this reddish color, and the exact word is al-malahif al-mu'safara, and we would see the stars in the sky smashing against each other. Another hadith from Nadratul Azdiyah, that she said, when Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed, the sky started raining blood. And when we woke up, we saw that everything was drenched in blood. From Abi Qubayl, the same hadith from Ansab al-Ashraf, that when Al-Husayn alayhi salam was killed, there was a kasfa, there was a solar eclipse. From Hisham, from Muhammad, that he said, do you know that the red of the sky, why did the sky get red? Do you know for who it got red? تعلم هذه الحمرة في الأفق ممن هو؟ فقال, so I asked him, i.e. Hisham asked Muhammad. So Hisham, this is Hisham bin Muhammad ibn Sa'ib al-Kalbi, Radwanullahi alayhi. He's asking his father. So I asked him, says, do you know for this writing in the sky, for who was it for? Says, it started happening the day after Al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam was killed. And Muhammad ibn Sirin says, we did not see the red in the sky until Al-Husayn salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi was killed. And ending with this hadith, I would like to wrap up this event. Allahumma bihaqq al-Husayn al-wajih وجده وأبيه وأمه وأخيه والتسعة المعصومين من ولده وبنيه صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته عنا يا رب العالمين اللهم بجاه محمد وآل محمد صل على محمد وآل محمد وترحم على محمد وآل محمد، وتبارك على محمد وآل محمد كأفضل ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد فعال لما تريد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والنصر. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم هب لنا رأفته ورحمته وعونه وفضله ودعاءه وخيره ما ننال به سعة من فضلك وفوزا من عندك يا كريم. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.